Hello everybody, welcome back. Let's have a look at a few of these coins. We're going to look at XLM and XRP and Bitcoin, and of course we're going to work out what's going on with this rally at the moment. Something quite interesting, I would say, is likely to happen. It's a bit around the corner, to be honest with you. So what I'm going to start with is just letting you know that if you want to set up a Binance account, if you've not already got one, you can set one up with my link below. This will give you 20% off all your trading fees for life. And if you've already got a Binance account, well, set up another one. If you're not getting 20% off, you might as well. So the links are below. You only need to verify with a photo ID if you're buying and selling with fiat currency. So you just need an email address and secure it with your Google Auth code or a mobile number, and this way you'll get 20% off all your trading fees. So every single trade you make, 20% off for the rest of your life. So what's going on then with some of these coins then? So first of all, I want to bring your attention to this chart, which is the dollar index. The dollar index is falling massive. It's dying off. Right, so this is a very long chart that we're looking at here on the daily, going back a few years basically, and what we're finding ourselves now is coming into this area now. What I really would expect a little bit of a relief bounce. All right, a bounce probably bigger than what most people are expecting. I think people have got used to the fact that the dollar is in free fall mode, and that's right. The dollar is in free fall mode. The Fed are printing money like no tomorrow, and they've even said that they're going to keep interest rates between 0 and 0.25%, possibly up to 2023. So I would expect the dollar to remain in the 80s for the vast majority of the year, maybe even come down to the low 80s before the end of the year. But that's not without some kind of bounces. So where are we going to bounce from? Well, history says that this is where we bounced from last time, okay? Anywhere from between 88.5 to basically where we are at right now, 89.2. So, when we're looking at a few other things, this isn't the greatest indicator of all, but it's the idea of how many people are long, how many people are short on Bitcoin. So this is adding insult to injury to the fact that the Dixie is down. When the Dixie goes down, all assets generally go up, because if they're measured in dollars, they're pegged to a dollar. If the dollar's worth less, then they're worth more. It's the same way that you would measure the cryptocurrencies against Satoshis, if you look at it like that way. So when this one goes down, everything else goes up. They might even be worth the same, fundamentally the same, but they're priced differently because the pricing that they're paired against, basically the dollar, is going down. So I hope that made sense to you, but that's basically a layman's version of what's actually going on. But so if the dollar were to bounce from here, it would mean that the likelihood is that cryptocurrencies, stocks, commodities, they will take a bit of a hit. You will see Bitcoin go down in value. You'll see gold go down in value. You'll see the Nasdaq and S&P go down in value because the dollar goes up. So I am expecting a little bit of a bounce between here and here. Now that is a relatively large range for the dollar index. Okay, so if from top to bottom that's another % that it could go down. If that went down another %, then everything's going to skyrocket. If it does bounce from here, where are we likely to bounce to? Well, there is a chance that we bounce all the way up to this blue box territory here, or we should probably call it a purple box, considering that it's purple, and that's a 2.5% move. Now I'm not saying that it will do that, but it could do that. Now, when we look at this historically, what happened here, this is where Bitcoin put in its last all-time high back in January 2018. So it's not a coincidence that Bitcoin was able to rally to that level, because the dollar was diving to this level. So if history were to repeat itself and we were to take find a bounce at these levels, that would suggest that Bitcoin has put in at least a local top around these levels. And there's a few other reasons why I might suggest that is maybe not the case right now, but is looking to be the case very shortly. So if Bitcoin does put in a local top, there's a few things that could happen. It could mean that Bitcoin plummets. Now we'll look at this on the weekly, okay? And what the weekly suggests is that there was a top here, and there was a top here, and maybe there's a top here. We look at the money flow index, what do we see? We see that there's a definite top there, but yet we're not to reach that critical level where we reached before, which is pretty much exactly 96.5. So we're not there yet. And actually, when you look at the way that the money flow index has been moving, it is actually relatively constructive this time round. We've got higher highs, higher lows, and then a big blow off top. This time we didn't have that. We had a giant move up and a giant move back down. We zigzagged, we had a giant move up and a giant move back down. This one is definitely different, but if we do reach these levels on the weekly, I would probably say that the top is definitely in, at least for the short term, and then we will come down. Now, because this is more constructive, we could actually measure this one out and actually have a good idea of where we're likely to look at finding a buyback zone. On the weekly this is, by the way, so it's not everything. And so what we'll be looking for is the money flow index to come down to touch this trend line, this upwards facing trend line of support. That would say to me, yeah, we've hit our new low, our bottom, our temporary bottom, our local bottom, and now it's probably a good idea to buy it back. But for the moment, we haven't even reached the top. But what happens when we reach these tops like this, at this significant height, is a significant drop. Obviously, I'm not planning on something like this happening, but this was a 50% move. And we're looking at this. This was about just in the space of 1 week. So again, we're talking weekly here. So this is when the money flow index hit its all-time high, and it retraced just from that one candle in that 1 week 24%, following on the next week 31%, and then obviously all the way back down to around about 56% overall. Now, I'm not saying that those things are going to happen. I'm just saying that we're looking for a top. I'm not looking for a specific reversal or a collapse or a massive crash, but it could be quite nasty because there's two things going on here at the moment. We're looking at a dollar index which could be finding a decent bounce, a bigger bounce than it's had for a very long time. And that coupled with the fact that the money flow index on the weekly for Bitcoin is also very, very high. So I would be not scared, but I would also think that if there is going to be a pullback, judging from the state of both of these charts and the relevance of them, and especially the fact that they coincide with the last time that there was a Bitcoin top and another Bitcoin top is going to be put in here, then I would actually think that we are getting to the point where there will be a flash crash, basically. But again, I have to say that when we're looking at the way that it's constructed on the weekly, it is way more constructive than previous. So this was a retracement of basically 50% crash in the space of a couple of days, actually. This one, a 50% retracement over a couple of months. But this one, I would imagine we will be looking maybe 20, maybe 30% retracement, full stop. Whether that happens in a day or a week or a few months, I think that's what we'll be looking at when we find our top. You can't price in a top when we're looking at this indicator. It tells us that a top is in, roughly, but it doesn't tell us where it's going to go down to. What I would look at though is perhaps maybe a fib retracement, and we'll see what kind of areas we could be looking at if we were to measure it all the way down from the top to the bottom here. So if we're looking at, first of all, the fibs, we have areas such as 29. We've also got areas such as 23. Now, between within this zone on the weekly, the 23 coincides almost exactly with a 10 exponential moving average. So I would expect if this were to crash back down, we could be looking at areas between roughly, we'll call it roughly around $25,000 is where we would probably find our temporary bottom. And again, we will know that a bit more technically by measuring out to see where the money flow index has gone. If the money flow index comes back down to this zone, it would be relatively safe to assume that could be a decent area to buy back into. But if it breaks down from here, then it is a different story. To put things into context though, I mean, Bitcoin and cryptocurrency in general is in the last phase of its bull run. Okay, so the bull run 2021 is the big year, right, for all cryptocurrencies. So we do have 12 months worth of bull run left, but in a bull run you do have nasty pullbacks. It doesn't mean that it's just going to go up and up and up for an entire year. I know some people probably think that is what's going to happen. Some people who are new to this think that that's what's going to happen. That won't happen. It will go up consistently throughout the year, but there will be some nasty pullbacks. So just to let you know that we are getting close to a pullback, given the fact that the money flow index is high and the dollar looks like it wants to catch a bounce within the next percent. So just be very careful. So let's have a look at these two bad boys. So we've got XLM absolutely just completely smashing it. This is what XRP should have looked like, but unfortunately, when the regulators get their own way, it doesn't look like that at all. Not to say that XRP cannot recover. It certainly could recover, but at the moment. It is not showing any signs of life. Now, buying this down at this level is risky. We've got death crosses, we've got death cross coming in on the daily. We're basically meandering around below all major moving averages on every time frame. I just don't like the look of it at all anymore. But sometimes it's better to bite your tongue and just go in for the kill. But at the moment, when there's so many other altcoins out there that are flying, it's probably best to leave this one alone for these oscillators and these moving averages and these other indicators to reset, because we don't have an edge until we have the edge. And at the moment, the only edge we've got is to tell us to stay away from it. You could put your investor's hat on and say, buy it when it's low, sell it when it's high. It does seem to not want to go down much further than this level. But remember what I just said about Bitcoin and crypto market and the dollar. All right, if that ends up being correct and we do catch a bounce on the Dixie and the money flow index does catch a top and Bitcoin does come down between 20 to 35%, then you can only imagine what that will do for XRP. Now at that point, would it be worth buying? And we could be coming down to our absolute low, all the way down to around about 9 or 10 cent. Then that would be an okay buy. Throw a little bit of money into it. No reason why you shouldn't at those incredibly low levels. Considering the market cycle with XRP itself still has another 12 months in it, and at the moment it's not completely broken. It's not unchanged. It's just there's been a huge spanner in the works. So I would say stay away from this one for the moment. And probably just be very careful with risk management across the board. Sometimes when you feel like you're invincible, that's exactly the same time you get shot in the back, with a silver bullet or something. No one and no chart is invincible or invulnerable. There's a method behind all of this. It might seem like it's going to go forever, but it won't. Okay, so I'm not here to ruin the party. When it comes to Bitcoin dominance, I should say, is that there has been a bounce on this descending trend line. So this was our channel that we were in. So this was our resistance channel. This was our support channel. This is how we've been trading Bitcoin and altcoins throughout the last year. So, when it gets to the top, we go into the alts and we sail the alts all the way down until there's a certain bounce. And then we go back into Bitcoin, we ride it all the way up to the top, and then we go back into altcoins and ride it all the way down to the bottom, where we basically go back into Bitcoin, ride it all the way up to the top, and then go into altcoins. And you get where I'm coming from. But because it was a descending channel, it was always destined to break out. So now that we've broken out of it, we have to look at new supports, levels, and resistance. So we managed to get the reasonably accurate read at this zone here, where we find resistance here, and we also found resistance here, and we broke down from it. But now what we see support taking place on what used to be the resistance trend line. So this will be the area to spark the alt season if we break down from this zone. So this zone, of course, is descending, so it's difficult to put an exact figure on it, but I'm talking roughly if we get below 68% dominant, then yeah, alt season really does kick off. And what we're seeing at the moment isn't alt season. This is it's the start of what could be an alt season. Alt season will really begin when we break down back into this channel, and then you will see stuff. If you're new to all of this, then you will see things like you've never seen before. But for the moment, we do have negative crosses on the MACD, but we are finding support around these levels. So for the moment, I like to stick with my original analysis, which is that alt season will really, really ramp up and kick off around mid-January into February. And that's what I'm sticking to, despite the fact that we are looking for a giant, a possible giant flash dump on Bitcoin, which will obviously take the rest of the market with it. But for the moment, we've got to keep our eyes peeled on the Dixie. This Bitcoin dominance might bounce all the way back up here, where we would get rejected once again. If there were to be a dump, for instance, I would imagine that Bitcoin dominance will shoot up because altcoins will fall, probably a lot harder than Bitcoin. And then we can go back into the altcoins, and I think this is where the alt season will really begin. If we do get that dump, then it will be buying altcoins like no tomorrow, and the altcoin season at that point will be the one to remember, maybe the biggest one that's ever been seen. But for the moment, this is it's looking good, it's looking promising, and this isn't the only way it could play out. This is just one interpretation that I'm putting out there. No one really knows exactly how things go. Technical analysis gives you an edge, gives you a variety, I suppose, of different scenarios. And when I look at the scenarios, we've got to try and put them into place days, weeks, and sometimes months ahead. And this, to me, looks like one of the more realistic situations. But again, because I'm looking at this on daily timeframes or weekly timeframes, it's difficult to pinpoint exactly when it's going to happen, or even if it will happen. But I think it's statistically more likely that this is how it's going to play, that we will catch a bounce on the Dixie, and it'll be a reasonable bounce back up into the 90s, maybe 91, maybe 91.5 at best, before a rejection. And then when that rejection will coincide with the rejection on Bitcoin dominance, which will coincide with the rise of all cryptocurrencies all over again as the Dixie falls back down, making new lows for the year. That's how I see it. It might not end up that way. The Dixie might just smash all the way through here and just continue down, and that will only strengthen cryptocurrency. So like I say, that's the way I'm viewing this at the moment. I am trying to manage my risk as best as possible, but sometimes, it's not the worst thing in the world to try and take profit as and when, especially when we're looking at something like this, which does hold a lot of relevance. Anyway, I'll leave it with you there, but thank you for watching. I hope you subscribe to this channel, join my Telegram, there's all the links you need below, and have a nice day. Take it easy.